This is going to be my better, more in-depth tutorial of how to give cubes a magic cloths or UV coated like finish. Previously, I stated that this was a UV coated finish, but it's actually not. It's the same exact feel of Moyu's magic cloths and pretty similar to Gan's UV coating, except it's through the process of vapor polishing, so it's not exactly UV coating, but it gives the exact, if not similar, result. So for this, you will need a container of some sort, some paper towels. I just cut these up because I know they fit in here already. Some acetone, 100% acetone preferably, and magnets to hold the paper towels in place. It's best to use an aluminum can in my experience, because then you only need to use magnets on one side. And for this specific tutorial, I'm going to be using a 10 by 10. All right, so firstly, what you're gonna want to do, if your container has a lid, open it. Preferably as well, get a container with a lid. With this one, I just cleaned it out, made sure it was clean from any other type of particle. And then that's when you get your paper towels. And what I did is I stacked them along one side, and some people only stack them along one side. I have not tested how that works. I assume it works fine. Maybe only coats that side of the cube, but I'd assume not. And kind of what I did here was make a little like ring shape. And if you make it all the way around, that's fine. If you don't, if you have a small gap, that's fine too. But once you do this, you just get your magnets, and then I magnetize the corner, top right corner, sorry. Magnetize kind of like that middle area part between them so I could save magnets because I'm lazy. Magnetize the corner, and then I go around on the bottom and do the same thing just to make sure everything stays in place. So you're going to want 2 adjacent magnets from each set. And then if you see any gaps, you could throw magnets wherever you want. Like, I don't know if you can see, but there's a small one here. Don't think it's that big of a problem, so it should be fine. But if you have huge ones, then just throw a magnet there to keep it in place. Now what you're going to want to do is get your acetone. And what I do is I just hold the container and pour it on an end of the paper towels. And it's a big amount, because then I just turn it around and you could maybe see the acetone start to slowly spread to the rest of the paper towel. Add more when it stops spreading. And wear a mask while doing this. That's definitely an ideal thing to do. Inhaling this isn't entirely bad for you, but I definitely don't recommend it. It's not a pleasant experience. So then once it's coated all the way around, I just pat any dry spots to make sure all the acetone's absorbed, because when acetone touches the plastic, it will melt it and your cube will become almost like super glue together, and you definitely do not want that. Now what you're going to want to do is take your container and its lid if you have one, which preferably get an aluminum container with a lid, is set your lid down, take your cube. Before that, make sure there's like nothing on your lid, just tap it around, no crumbs or extra liquid acetone or whatever. Place your cube down, doesn't matter if it's solved or not, and again in this case I'm using a 10 by 10 and it's also super flipped in the moment. You're going to want to keep track, if it's not solved, of your center that's on top and your center that's on bottom, which in this case I'm doing a yellow top, white bottom, super flip orientation. You're going to want to then take your little contraption thing you made earlier, with your cube in the center, place it on, make sure it's sealed tight. Doesn't really matter because you want all the vapors to stay in, so I mean it will, but just make sure it's sealed tight. 4 cubes, 2 by 2, 3 by 3. Set a timer starting with 5 to 10 minutes For 4x4 and 5x5, do 10 to 15. And for 5x5 plus, I would say maybe up to 8x8, do 20 minutes. And that should be good enough, like entirely. If you do it too long, your cube will melt. So do not do it for a long time at a time. Trust me. For 10 by 10, I'm saying the times for ideal, like WCA N by N's. But say something like a 10 by 10, I'm personally going to start with 20 minutes as well, just to make sure the cube doesn't melt or get like a funny coating instead. But yeah, when your cube's in there, set it aside, set your timer for whatever cube you're using, and then check back when your alarm's done. After your timer is up, now what you're going to want to do is grab your container again and remove the lid, or I guess just open the container, get your cube, and as you can see, the sides will be extremely shinier than they were prior. After it dries out, or hardens up, it will be even more shiny. Picking it up and holding it, turning it, you're going to want to be extremely careful, because it will feel not mushy, but it will easily like scratch and merge, I guess is a word. You will also want to do a turn on it on every layer, just to make sure nothing did stick together. It will feel stuck in place at first, but it's really not. You just have to turn it a little bit, and then it'll feel exactly like it did prior. And just make sure you do that on every axis, and everything will be fine. Before the next step, let it rest for about maybe 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, just so the UV coating, or not UV coating, the vapor polish coating, similar to UV coating, can harden up. That way we can move on to the next step. Once the UV coating hardens up, the final step, one of the final steps, is to then grab some tape. And now what you're going to want to do is take your tape and tape all the sides except for the top side that you did your first coating on, and the bottom side, as they are the sides that will have the least coating from the first one. So what I like to do is I like to get out a little strand of tape without it getting stuck, and just put it right on there, like right at that border. It doesn't have to be exactly on the border, just as close as you can get to it, and then you'll be good. And then I start to wrap it around until I get to the bottom. Once I get close to the bottom, I like to rotate it, just so I could then have the side that's not taped on top, so I could see what I'm doing. Once it gets to the top, put it back on the border. Like you can see there, it got to the top, so I put it back on the border between a side piece and then the top. And then once again, just go all the way around the border. And make sure you're not actually on top of it, because then it won't coat. Just make sure you're as close as possible to it. And as you probably figured from mine, your tape job does not have to be the prettiest. Just as long as it covers all the sides that have been coated already. That way one side's not shinier than the other. And I just like to go around once, because that's what works for me. Tap all the sides down, just to make sure everything's taped. And then once everything is taped, I like to set it back down in the center, except with the, well, I guess it wouldn't be white and yellow depending on the orientation you did, but with the non-taped sides facing a side, either left and right, front and back, doesn't matter. Just make sure they're not top and bottom. Now you're going to want to take your container again, put it back on, and for however long you set your timer for previously, set it for that long again, exact same amount, that way it's evenly coated. After your timer's done, come back and check it. Once your timer goes off again, the next thing you're going to want to do is open up your container, inspect both sides to make sure the polish job went well, which it did. Once you do that, you're going to want to remove the tape. Make sure you're removing the right piece, because that would definitely help. And then just remove it all the way around. Uh-oh. Cool. And now you won't have to worry about sides being equally polished or not, because no matter what, they will be. Just like we did last time, what you're going to want to do now is turn all your layers to make sure it doesn't get stuck together and that, you know, the polish job went exactly how it was supposed to. And there you go. The only thing I will say is, with your tape job, along the edges that you taped, so like here and then all the way around, so except the equator edges, it can feel a little bumpy almost. Let it dry. You could rub it in if you want, since it's still a little malleable, but let it dry, and then eventually it'll almost just like break it in and feel smooth again after a couple solves. And you could always just take a file and, you know, just sand the meeting point of the edges and not the sides to make sure you don't sand off the UV coating. It's not UV coating. Again, vapor polish gives the exact same feel as UV coating. But besides making sure it dries a little bit before solves, being careful with it, that is your vapor polish cube with a UV-like finish. I think you'll be able to see it in the video. It's pretty shiny, a lot shinier than it was before. I'll try to get a before and after to show you, but I'm not sure I'll be able to because I didn't exactly take a picture before. But if I do, then you should be seeing it. But yeah, that's how you vapor polish a cube to give it a UV-like feel.